Welcome to Tommy Solo's Famous Friends. This is where I get to chat with people that I've connected with over the years in the world of arts and entertainment, and today I'm very pleased to have with me international recording star from Wikwemikong on Manitoulin Island, Canada, now residing in Nashville. Welcome to the show, Crystal Shawanda.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, this is my absolute pleasure, and as I said to you when we were talking privately, by only so many degrees of separation, we've nearly met, but not quite, and I'm just so pleased to finally meet you on the phone.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we enjoyed having that show on the island back in the past few years, and it's too bad we didn't get to meet at that time.
Yeah. Well, similar circles and all that, but so I know a little bit about your hometown, and I understand that your parents raised you on traditional country, and that's where you started out. But then at a certain point in time, I guess your brother was an influence, and he kind of got you into the blues.
Yeah, definitely. My parents, they listened to traditional country music. Hank Williams was the main staple in our house. That's what they listened to the most, so that's what I grew up singing along to. And my oldest brother did listen to blues music, and and through the years, as I look back now, I'm actually just, thinking about it now. When I look back, Hank Williams was actually, his biggest mentor was actually a blues musician named Rufus Haynes, who they sometimes call T-Tot. So a lot of his music, without people realizing it, was blues influenced. His music was a mixture of folk, hillbilly, and blues music, and he kind of made his own fusion of music. So it was very natural for me to also be drawn to blues music, since Hank Williams was one of my very first, people that I really looked up to, and I listened to all of his music all the way back to his other stuff as Luke's a Drifter, and so that really connected me with the blues, the real blues music. So it was only natural that I eventually made my transition from country to blues.
Well, there is a very close sentiment. You listen to a lot of the traditional country music, and the traditional blues is very common sentiment in the two, in the emotion and so on. Now, I know that you recorded your first album when you were 13 years old, and you started to actually perform live when you were 6. That's a real early start. How did you actually get the gumption to start singing in public when you're only 6 years old?
Oh, well, I just loved to sing. I loved it so much. And my family, nobody sang out in public, but my dad would sing and play guitar at home. And my mom and my brothers would sing along, but it was more of an enjoyment thing, for them. Music was always like cheap therapy for them. I could always tell what kind of mood everybody was in, depending on what songs or what albums they were listening to. And, so I just loved it so much. I felt, because everybody in my family was always singing, I thought everybody was a singer, so I didn't think of it as such a big deal. And I was actually in choir at school, and it was my music teacher who noticed that I was not shy, and I was very loud. I grew up with 2 older brothers, and I grew up in a family where if you want to be heard, you got to be louder than everybody else in the room. People would come over, and they would think that we were fighting, but we're just really, really loud when we talk. And so I wasn't shy. I was very loud, and I could sing in tune. And so my music teacher is the one who said, "Hey, Crystal, she held me back after choir one day and asked me, would you like to sing a song by yourself at the upcoming Christmas concert?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I didn't even think twice about it. I was just like, "Sure." And I did All I Want for Christmas is my 2 front teeth, and I was actually missing my 2 front teeth, so that was kind of the teacher's idea. She thought it would be cute. And so I did it. And I remember there was a funny part in the song where everybody in the audience started to laugh. And I remember I could feel their happiness. I could feel their joy and all that beautiful energy. And I was like, wow, this is all I have to do to make people happy. Well, then this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, because even at 6 years old, I was very aware of growing up in an Indigenous community on a reservation. We were surrounded by a lot of the aftermath of intergenerational trauma. So there's a lot of depression, alcoholism, addiction, risky lifestyles, that sort of thing. And so I seen a lot of sadness. And I wanted to make people happy, and I felt like I could do that with music. And from there, I just never looked back. Every stage I could find, every variety show, karaoke, open night, Christmas concert, telethons, anywhere I could squeeze myself into, I would bug my parents. Hey, I heard this is going on. Let's go to this singing contest. Let's go here. And my parents I think they were just so grateful that I found something to give me hope, to keep me on a good path in life, And so I just never looked back. And then I started getting paid to do it when I was 10 years old. And I was like, wow, I could get paid to do this. And that was it. I just never looked back. So this is all I've ever done. I've never had a plan B. I've never had a day job. It's just always been music.
Well, you've been in the music for your whole life for the best reason of all, and that's the love of the music. And I talk to so many people in the business who struggled for so long because they were trying to make a living, and that was the first ambition and the main goal. And it's just so hard if that's your sole reason for doing it. And I think that when people like you do the music for the love of the music, it shows. And I know when I was up on Wikwemikong on Manitoulin and mingling among some of your people, this was when you were just first signed, I think, and just starting to break. And the people on Wikwemikong were all over me about, have you heard of our Crystal Shawanda? I was just so intrigued by you without having met you. And, you had a very supportive community, and there's a lot of talent up there. Anyway, back to you. I know that when you first moved to Nashville, when you were 16, you were a little bit discouraged by a music biz executive who just couldn't see a way to fit somebody like you into the whole promo machine. That had to be somewhat deflating.
Yeah, absolutely. When I first moved to Nashville, I was too naive to be scared. So I went knocking on doors that I really had no business knocking on. I would walk up and down Music Row and go to publishing houses, record labels, anywhere, and just knock on the door and be like, hi, I'm Crystal Shawanda. I'm from Canada and I want to be a country music singer. And, most people wouldn't give me the time of day, but once in a while I would get lucky. And, I managed, one time I was walking into a record label and I was standing there doing my whole little song and dance with the secretary, and I could see some guy about to go into the door to the back where the offices were, and he was standing there just kind of jingling his keys, hesitating and listening. I could tell he was listening to me. And then he stopped and he said, hey, I got a few minutes. Come on in. Sing me a couple songs. And I said, oh, okay. So I was so excited. I went in. I sat down, and I remember I did my version of Cheating Hard for him, and I did Stand By Me. And after I was done, he sat there kind of quiet for a minute, and then he said, well, your voice is amazing. He said, I think it's so big, it's so powerful. He said, but I'm sitting here trying to think, I don't know what I would do with you. I don't know how I would market you in country music. I don't know if the country music fan base is ready for somebody like you. Native Americans within country music, I'm not sure I don't know if it quite matches up, if it quite makes sense. And, I was only 16, and I was always trying to be mature, no crying in baseball. And so I said, oh, okay, thank you for your time. And it was great meeting you because I knew exactly who he was. He had worked on a lot of my favorite albums at that time in music. And so I left, and after a couple months, I ended up packing my bags and moving back home to my reserve because I felt really discouraged because, if he had told me I was out of tune, I could try to get voice lessons. If he said he didn't like my song, I could try to write another one. But there was nothing that I could do about the color of my skin. I was very good at taking critique and working on what they told me to work on, but this was something that I couldn't work on. It was just a dead end. So I went back home and I just kind of gave up music, maybe for about a year and a half. But no matter what I did, I kept ending up back in front of a microphone and back on a stage. And it just became apparent to me that this is what I love to do. And I don't really care if somebody thinks that I don't fit into a certain box. I'm going to do it regardless. And so I moved back to Nashville. And this time it wasn't to get a record deal. This time it was just to live a life filled with music, the life of singing and making and creating music and being around like-minded people. And that's what I did. And I just followed my heart with it, you know. And when I think back to the time of that situation, you know, was it racism? A little bit, you know, and but also I think it was a big part of it was somebody who was afraid to lose their job. You know, when you sign somebody to a record deal, you're getting ready to spend $1 million on them, and that's a big investment. And I think he wasn't totally wrong, you know, because here we were all these years later, and I finally got my big record deal, and I went out and did my first radio tour. And although we did get in the top 20, it was really difficult. You know, I did face a lot of stereotyping and racism at country radio stations, country music festivals. Sometimes I showed up to play, and people were like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "I'm Crystal Shawanda." They're like, "We want the You Can Let Go girl." I'm like, "That's me." And, you know, and I think sometimes people were surprised to find out that I was an Indigenous woman, you know, because I think at that time when they made my first release, the Dawn of a New Day album, I thought, looking back, I could see now where a lot of my pictures were whitewashed, like they lightened up a lot of my pictures. And I didn't realize it at the time, but now looking back, I see what was happening there. So, yeah, it's one of those things that I've had to really fight to break through.
And yet, at the same time as this guy was, you know, not sure what to do with you and inherently racist, you know, I think about people like Charlie Pride, you know, Marty Robbins, huge country music stars. And aside from them being men, they were colored people, you know, and it is what it is. I guess people just don't know how to deal with their own fears sometimes. But in the end, it all worked out for you. And I know that you were signed to RCA in 2007. And talking to certain people, like I talked to Tommy Hunter a while ago, and he was saying that he was really fortunate that he was signed with the American label, and that makes a big difference too.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, to be perfectly honest, I couldn't even get a Canadian record label to look at me because anytime I tried to pursue my career in Canada, like this was back in 90, 96, 90, back in the mid-90s anyways, anytime I tried to push for myself to have a career as a country music singer within Canada, people would, I'm so sorry, my daughter's singing away here. You know, anytime I pushed for or to try to do anything within music, people would always try to put me in the Indigenous slot, like to do Indigenous music. And I would always have to explain to people, no, I'm an Indigenous woman singing country music. But, you know, they're like, they didn't see that as an option. Like everybody was always like, you're an Indigenous woman, so you have to do Indigenous music. And I couldn't get anybody to take me seriously as a mainstream artist. And so that was the main reason why I packed up and moved to Nashville, because when I came to Nashville, aside from that one experience with that one producer, most people just looked at me as everybody else. You know, I was just another person chasing the American dream. And I didn't get put into an Indigenous slot. I was the only Indigenous person that I knew of at that time in Nashville. Nobody had ever seen anybody like me. But at the same time, again, I was just one of the many colors in the melting pot, just trying to chase the American dream.
Yeah, and you've done quite well for yourself. Now, I understand that after your first dealing with RCA, you went independent, and you've had several releases since then under your own label. Am I right?
I branched out and started my own record label, New Sun Records, because I wanted to make music that meant something to me, music with a message, meaningful music. You know, I didn't want to be obsessed with chasing that top 20 spot. And I think sometimes as an artist, especially in country music, you're constantly chasing that top 20 spot, and sometimes you can lose who you are as an artist in that whole process. And you tend to lose your voice because, you know, you have to cut the songs your producer wants. You have to cut the song the label wants. And then the label has favors to fill with publishing companies. So you're obligated. They're like, they throw you these sets of songs and they say, we don't care which one you cut, but you have to cut one of these because we owe a favor to this publishing company. We owe a favor to this other publishing company. And you have to cut something from our publishing company that we own so we can make even more money from it. So it really limits you as far as, you know, having your own choices of what you're wanting to record. And, you know, and people kept saying, you're being too bluesy, you're being too bluesy. And something that I wanted to pursue, what's coming out of me naturally as a songwriter, as a singer. And so I started my own record label so I could explore that. And we put out, the first album we put out was Just Like You, and it was nominated for a Juno Award, and I won the Juno Award actually for it. And we had a top 20 hit with it in Canada and a top 10 video on CMT. And then after that album that's when I branched out to the blues. And it just came about really naturally. It wasn't like a conscious decision, like, oh, I'm going to switch and be a blues singer. For me, I was just watching the news one day, and I started writing the song, and my husband walked in the room, and he's like, what is that you're playing? I said, I don't know. It's just something new I'm writing. And he sat down with me, and we finished it, and it was called The Whole World Got the Blues. And I just loved it so much. I loved the message, and I knew something like that could never go over in country music. And so I said to my husband, well, why don't we do a blues album? I mean, isn't that why we started our record label, so we could do whatever we want creatively? And so we put the album up there, and recording that album, that whole process was vocally was like letting a bird out of a cage. And now I just don't want to put her back in. I was able to do all these cool things with my voice that I used to have to hide before. Like my country music producer was like, okay, don't do that. Tone that down. No, we don't want to scare everybody off in country music. I don't think they'd be ready for that, and then here I was singing this blues music, and I was able to do all of these growls and raspiness and doing all these, bigger vocal performances. And it was just so much fun for me. And I just knew that I found the place where I made sense. And so we did 2 more blues albums, and it was on the 3rd blues album that I was contacted by Jeff Kulowick from True North Records, which is in Canada. He contacted me about wanting to work with me. He loved my 3rd blues album, Voodoo Woman, and so I signed a record deal with them. And they, even though I had already released Voodoo Woman, they re-released it, and they did a much better, bigger release than what I did on my own. And it did amazing. It stayed in the charts for like over 37 weeks. And it was really my proper introduction to the blues world. And so it was such an amazing experience. And then we did the Church House Blues album with True North Records. And they did it again. It was on the charts for over 36 weeks. It was on the top 10 charts for over 10 weeks. It's just been amazing. And it just was nominated for 2 Juno Awards. So we're really excited about working with True North Records, and we're now working on a new album already, and it's already almost done.
Awesome. Now, did you retain your publishing when you started your own record label? Do you have your publishing rights? But first, this very important public service announcement. Hey, I got my first dose of the vaccine, and I really think that if we want to get summer back, get our festivals and our live music back, we need to get our first dose. If enough of us do this, we can have our freedom back. Yes, do this. And I know a lot of my famous friends agree with me.
Hi, this is the big time operator. This is Keith Hampshire, just reminding you to go and get your COVID-19 shot. Get your vaccine. This is a worldwide epidemic, and if we don't put a lid on it soon, we won't be having any live music for a long, long time. So go and get your vaccine. Don't be chicken. Go and do it. Doesn't hurt.
Thank you, Keith Hampshire, for that. Now let's get back to the show where Crystal was about to tell us about her publishing.
Yes, when I started my own record label, yes, I also own my own publishing company as well.
Well, that's awesome because you've got to be one of the very small handful of artists who are actually able to make a living at the music. And while you're doing what you love, that's the best.
It is. It's amazing, and a lot of people don't realize that, everybody who's not in the music industry, fans, don't realize that it's really hard for artists to make money these days, because of streaming and because of digital downloads. A lot of times these days, people will, instead of buying a whole album, they just want to buy the song they like for 99 cents. And it's like, and after you spend thousands and thousands of dollars on recording an entire album, and then somebody buys one song for 99 cents. It's like, ouch.
Yeah.
It really hurts, it hurts the pocket, and it makes it difficult for artists to continue to pursue their careers, thankfully, I've been very fortunate that I still sell a lot of hard product, physical product. People still like to buy CDs off me. I've been very blessed in that way. And I do really good with digital downloads too as well. I've been very lucky. I work really hard to stay on the road. Well, before the pandemic happened, I stayed on the road constantly, and I try to stay active on social media, just constantly self-promoting, I shamelessly self-promote myself because that's what you got to do, So I've been very blessed.
Absolutely, and you've been putting the work in. That's another one of the big differences, that there are so many people, like I've said before, that get into music because they want to be a rock star, they want to make $1 million, but they don't want to put in the work, and that is all the difference right there.
It really is. Like some people, like you said, some people want the image of everything, and some people think that it should all be handed to them, because even though I'm signed with True North Records, I'm still continued to keep my record label going because I've put so much work into it, and we're starting to, we've built up some credibility, and we've changed the name from New Sun Records to New Sun Music, and I signed another act called The North Sound, and they did amazing this past year. They just put out a new album called As the Stars Explode, and they were nominated for 4 Saskatchewan Music Awards and 3 Saskatchewan Country Music Awards. So, so we're staying busy, and I like to work with people who are hard workers. They are a duo that work hard. They remind me of me and my husband. They're a husband and wife duo as well. And so I respect that, and then sometimes people will approach me about working with me, who want to sign with my label, or who want me to produce them, who want me to mentor them and help them. And then, so here I will be, working real hard, trying to find grant money to record them and grant money to promote them or market them or anything. And they're, keep calling me, messaging me, have you found anything? Have you found any money yet? And then they are turning around, posting pictures of buying cars and and brand new cars. And I'm like, what are you doing? Instead of spending that money on trying to look cool, invest in your own career. Because if you don't invest in your own career, then why should anybody else? So that's a really good piece of advice for anybody out there who's an aspiring artist, musician. You've got to invest in yourself if you want anybody to invest in you.
Absolutely, 100% agreed. Now, as far as Crystal Shawanda live, it's really a family affair on stage, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. My husband is my guitar player. He's also my producer, and we write all the songs together. And then our little girl, Jaja, she's 4 years old now, but she has grown up in the studio and on the stage with us. I never leave home without her. I've never had a nanny for her because she won't let anybody watch her but her papa. So my dad is a retired truck driver who went, after he retired from truck driving, he went on the road with us for like 8 years as my bus driver. And then after that, Jaja was born, and we stopped taking the bus out. We started doing more flying around and stuff. And so he became her nanny. And so now she won't let anybody watch her but her papa. But a lot of times she joins us right on stage. Last Christmas, she had her debut at a real blues venue because on that one, my dad couldn't make it out to the show. So we asked the venue, could I bring my little 4-year-old out on stage? It was at the blues, what's that theory? That blues house just outside of Toronto. But yeah, so she joined Blues Church and joined us right on stage. And she's part of the show, and she's a little entertainer. And at this point, it kind of looks like this is going to be her whole life, but we'll see what happens.
Well, that is really awesome. I really envy you in that position. Not very many can tour with their family, and sometimes it doesn't work out all that well when they do. But it's a really cool situation for you.
It's definitely tricky, It's not always easy. I'm not going to lie. It's not always easy. Sometimes I'm like tending to her right till I get on stage. I'm like, trying to get her juice, get her toys, get her this, and tell her I'll be right back. You be a good girl for Papa, And then next thing you know, it's like, there's somebody yelling at me from the stage. It's time to get on stage, and I'm running on the stage and getting up to sing, and and sometimes I don't even feel prepared when I hit the stage. Like sometimes I haven't even thought about the set list or the order, and I'm just trying to keep it together. But it's worth it though, because when I'm on stage singing and I look over to the side and I see her, or she comes out and sings with us, it's the best part of my life. I can honestly say this is the happiest I've ever been, and I wouldn't enjoy playing music anymore if my daughter was at home with somebody. I want her there with me. So even my agent, when people book me, my agent always tells them, just so you know, she'll be bringing her little 4-year-old, and she might join them on stage, or she might stay in the dressing room. But so it is a family affair. So it's very important to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, nothing is more important than family. And, speaking of being prepared, you just reminded me of the last time that I went up to the Manitoulin area to work with Roger and the Mason-Dixon line. He was being inducted into the Northern Opry, and he sent me a CD with 15 songs on it. And they're all covers, whatever, but I spent probably a month making sure I nailed all the guitar parts and as many backup vocals and whatnot as I could. And then I drove in the middle of the winter from my mother's place in North Bay, Ontario, to Blind River for rehearsals. And as soon as I got there, he says, "Oh, we're doing 27 songs." I said 27 songs. He says, "Yeah, and we've got 3 opening acts, and you guys are going to back them up." Oh, boy. Yeah. And, it's just a good thing that the people up there are just so warm and receptive to the music. And, when we talk about the whole idea of people not knowing what to do with a First Nations woman in country music, it strikes me odd that when I was on the powwow trail playing all the powwow circuit with Roger and the gang, it was all about country music. That's what the First Nations people on the whole up there are really into.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that I always talked about when I did my radio tour, because people were always surprised, that we were drawn to country music. But, country music is about real life stories. It's about real life situations, things that are happening every day. I think lately it's become a lot more pop oriented, and it's more going in that direction. But, traditionally it was always about real life stories, and it wasn't, it was hard luck stories, and it was the truth. So it wasn't always pretty.
Yeah. And as we kind of mentioned earlier, there's a real connection between traditional country and traditional blues. And since you've gone down that path, you've really been on fire. I know we've both been on Danny Mark's show, Blues FM, and you just keep getting more and more play with everything you do. So that's congratulations. Oh, there was one thing that I wanted to ask you about that was pretty cool. Aside from all your other awards and your success with the music, you got to perform at Obama's inauguration.
Yeah, that was kind of far out. When the inauguration happened, there was a lot of different balls going on at a lot of different places. I can't remember how many exactly. I think there were like 12 different balls going on. But we got to perform at one of them. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. It's like high security, so they had to do background checks on everybody on the whole crew. All these security checks when you're led into the perimeter of the area that's anywhere close to the White House at that time. We're heading in to go do the show, and you could see like snipers on rooftops everywhere. It's a really big deal.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it was a lot of people there. I didn't actually get to meet Obama, but being there for that moment in time was, it was definitely an amazing experience, one that I'll always remember.
And to get through an event like that without the bass player getting busted, that's pretty cool. It's always the bass player, right?
Yeah, that's for sure.
Oh, boy. Well, I don't want to take up a whole lot more of your time, but we should remind the people where they can get your music.
Yeah, absolutely. They're still selling physical products. You just have to go online and kind of do the search route. There's a lot of different outlets that are selling it. But of course, as always, you can get my music digitally at iTunes. You could stream me on Spotify, and make sure you follow me and add me to your playlist, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm constantly updating videos, and I've been doing a lot of vlogging lately, and like my Facebook page. I love to interact with my fans on Facebook and Instagram, and that sort of thing. So I'd love to hear from y'all.
And can people get your music? Can they buy it from your website as well?
It's not set up from our website. It's better to buy it from the different outlets that are available online. Okay. That way the record label gets to see the rewards of their investment in me.
Cool. Now, I understand that they're opening things back up down there, and you've actually played one show already. That was in Kentucky, you said?
Yeah, we played a blues festival in Kentucky called the Spring Blues Festival at the Oak Grove Racing and Gaming Complex, and it was just amazing. They built a brand new amphitheater, so we were actually the very first band to play at that amphitheater, and we were the first act of the day. So we were just so excited. It was our first time playing full band show in over a year, so real people out in the crowd. And it was just incredible, you know, even just a sound check. We did sound check earlier in the day, and there was just a few people starting to make their way in. But it was after singing a couple songs at sound check, I got so emotional with, like, actually, like, tears in my eyes, because it just felt so amazing to be back up on a big stage, to be playing with other musicians. And, you know, then when we did the actual show, we got people up and dancing, even though it was so early in the day. People were dancing, and just to feel that energy again, that beautiful, good energy that made me want to be a singer, it was just incredible. I was just a lot of emotions. It was like a floodgate of emotions just came pouring out, you know, because I think this past year I've been really suppressing a lot of my emotions, you know. I wouldn't let myself dare feel the sadness of missing the stage because I didn't know how long this was going to go on. I had to focus on my little girl. I couldn't indulge in my depression. So I just wouldn't let myself feel it. I focused on my little girl. I focused on doing virtual shows and trying to dig up as much work as I could as a singer and as a motivational speaker. And so finally being on that stage and feeling people's energy, I was so excited. I was so happy. You know, I sang so hard that after an hour after the show, I couldn't even talk. So I was pretty excited and just so grateful, you know, so thankful. We were still very safe. Everybody was social distancing. We were about 20 feet away from the crowd, and everybody backstage was wearing masks, you know, and we only took them off when we performed. So it was still really safe. You know, it felt weird being around people again, but it was a good weird, though.
I'll bet, yeah. And, you know, this gives me hope because I've been saying to people for the last year that my feeling is that when the music comes back, people are going to have a greater appreciation and a renewed vigor and enthusiasm. And thank you for that. That is awesome news. So, Crystal, I don't have any more questions for you, but what I do like to do is to give my guests the last word. So if there's anything that you particularly feel passionate about, why don't you tell the people what that is?
Oh, just, you know, for me, I think just, especially at this time and with everything that's going on in the world, it's for everybody to just take care of yourself. Be easy on yourself mentally, I'm talking specifically, and physically. You know, this past year, it's like everybody's on lockdown, especially in Ontario right now. So it's like you feel like you can't do much, and so it gets really easy to sink into depression. And you don't even realize you're depressed. Like in your mind, you're thinking, oh, it's just another lazy day. But don't get so used to that where you're doing that for, you know, weeks and months at a time. You know, force yourself to get up, do some physical activity, get some exercise, do things mentally, get into reading books again, watch movies that inspire you, listen to music that inspires you, learn how to do something new. You take up a new hobby, a new trade or something, and just try to hang in there. I know this is a difficult time for everybody, so just try to keep your spirits up.
Well, we're rounding the corner now. You know, Crystal, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to speak with me today. It's been a great pleasure, and until next time, Chimgwech.
Oh, thank you so much, and Chimgwech. I really appreciate it.
Well, what a treat it was for me chatting with Crystal Shawanda. Now, here is the title track from her recent Juno-nominated album, Church House Blues. Enjoy.
To get my Sunday morning right, I went down to the church house to get my Sunday morning right. I caught 'em dancing in the aisles like the roadhouse we played. reading in the Bible. Don't matter what song you sing, whether you're dancing in the aisles or dancing on the tables. Let's see what Monday morning brings. I went down to the church house to get my Sunday morning right. I went down to the church house to get my Sunday morning right. I caught him dancing in the aisles like that roadhouse we played last night. Yeah, they were dancing in the aisles like that roadhouse we played last night. Yeah. Hey.
Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a one-man production, meaning that I've done all the work, including producing, editing, guest acquisition, etc. All rights reserved. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The theme song for Tommy Solo's Famous Friends was written and recorded by Tommy Solo with a little help from my friends in the night crew. And hey, if you like the show, why not subscribe? Until next time, cheers.